Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Naruto can use other people's memories. Sometimes a technique can lead to new discoveries, new paths. A chance discovery lets Naruto learn that which he was never taught, using the memories of others to aid his progress. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 8, Reputation of a New Genin. You seem distracted today. Kosuke commented as he and Naruto slowly paced along the Great Wall surrounding Konoha. I found out that yesterday that I totally misread someone. Naruto sighed. I all but accused him of being a traitor like Mizuki team, but he was actually trying, in his own way, to look out for me. Yes, he totally got it wrong, but he's tried to make up for it since. Who? Kosuke asked curiously. Jonin Hatake Kakashi. He was kind enough to tell me about my parents. Minato and Kushina. Yes, they were wonderful people. Naruto froze. You know their names? He said he couldn't tell me due to security reasons. Kosuke winced. Damn, I'm getting too old. I wouldn't have made a mistake like that if I was younger. Naruto stood, staring into space. I have my parents' names. I can find out all about them, see if they left me anything. Naruto. Naruto's attention snapped back to Kosuke. Hi. Your parents had enemies. Kosuke said gently but firmly. Should you try to claim your inheritance, they will find out and they will send assassins to kill you in order to end your parents' clans forever. Your father in particular had many enemies who would like nothing better than to see the corpse of his son ripped apart and his head placed on a spike over the gate to their village. If you wish to research your parents, then make damned certain that no one, and I mean no one, can trace the research back to you. Don't go to the archives yourself, send clones using Henge. Deploy the clones and have them hide for an hour or more before they head in so that no one links your actions to their arrival. Have the clones find somewhere secret to dispel since knowledge of your usage of Kage Bunshin is spreading. And above all, once you confirm your parents' clan names, tell no one unless you are in a truly private room with security seals in place. Having said all that, I think that when you find out exactly who they were, you will be inspired to train harder and better than ever before. Naruto nodded. Thanks, senpai. Now, since I've messed up enough for the day, we may as well discuss infiltration and interrogation techniques, also known as how to get information from others. Kosuke said, and Naruto grinned at how the old man was able to turn an honest error into a lesson. He was almost as cool as Jiji. Well, now that the D rank is done, it's time to train, and today's training will be different for you. Asuma smiled and Shikamaru frowned. You seem to be looking forwards to this too much. This means that whatever you have planned for us will be highly troublesome. Asuma's grin broadened and he stepped to one side, revealing a meter-tall scroll leaning against the tree behind him. This is your target, he said. In the scroll is your dinner. All you have to do is bring it here and unroll it on that table. Don't worry, I won't make a single move to stop you. The trio of genin glanced at the long table set up in the shade, then back at the scroll. The test will start in 10, 9, 8. Shikamaru frowned in thought as both Ino and Koji crouched, ready to run to the scroll. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Even as Asuma gave the command, a black-clad ninja dropped out of the tree, grabbed the scroll and sprinted off. Damn it! Shikamaru cursed as he dashed after his two teammates. I should have locked it into place with my shadow. What the hell? Ino screeched and Shikamaru looked up just as a dozen identically clad clones leapt on him. So, what did the real you want in exchange for this exercise instead of the usual payment? Asuma asked. Boss was wondering if you could help us find out his elemental affinity. The short ninja replied even as he pulled off his hood to let his blonde spiky hair wave in the breeze. I'll get you some chakra paper tomorrow. Asuma said, and the clone nodded, then twitched. Your genin have almost fought free of the first group. Shikamaru punched the last enemy, dispelling him in the now familiar cloud of smoke, and looked round. Where did he go? I don't know. Ino grumbled, trying to put her hair back into its normal ponytail. We have to find him. Koji panicked. That scroll contains all of our food. Shikamaru bent down and picked up a piece of paper by his feet. Clue 1. The 4 watch over, yet only one watches. Go where the hat would rest on stone. Beware the route up to the top, 'tis not safe to go alone. He read. What? Ino asked in disbelief. What the hell does that mean? The next clue is on the Hokage mountain. Shikamaru said. We'll probably have to fight another group of clones in order to find the next clue. What? Ino started, then she shook her head. Never mind, let's go. How long did it take Shikamaru to work out the problem? Asuma asked as he lit another cigarette. About 5 seconds. The clone laughed. Of course, he got the threat wrong. Ino staggered into the clearing, her clothing ripped, her skin blotched with bruises and various dyes. Koji and Shikamaru followed, both showing evidence of having been caught in traps, but nowhere near as much as Ino. Who the hell traps every single foot of the dem path? Ino howled. You two were useless. We kept telling you not to charge ahead. Shikamaru mumbled. What was that? Calm down, Ino. Koji said placatingly. I'm perfectly calm. Koji sidled backwards and Shikamaru sighed. All right, everyone look round. The next clue should be on the Sandaime's head. Oh, this should be fun. Of the 4 ways, you used the 4th when the 3rd would have carried you past. Shika read, ignoring Ino's snarls. The obvious way is not always correct. Clue 2. When leaving the village, this path you will take, but don't leave the leaf for that would be a mistake. Koji tilted his head slightly and Shikamaru sighed. Main gate. Ino stormed back down the path, then screamed as a noose wrapped round her ankle and hoisted her up into the air. I think we should find another way down. Shikamaru mused as Ino turned the air blue. It looks like the traps have been reset. The 4th way? Koji asked. It seems familiar. There are 4 ways to deal with any obstacle. Shikamaru recited. Over, under, around, or through. Ah. Stop yammering and get me down. Asuma smirked as the tottering forms of his genin approached. All of them showed significant signs of having been forced to do more work than they were used to, and Shikamaru's jacket was still smoldering while Koji's bandana was ripped, letting his hair stick out in all directions with a small electrical spark occasionally jumping between them. The dem password is Uzumaki. Shikamaru growled and the scroll dropped out of the branches, landing on the table. Naruto, I'd like you to know that I really hate you right now. I hope you know that. You ruined my wardrobe. Ino tried to shriek, but her exhaustion prevented her from getting any real volume. Asuma glanced at her and his eyes widened at the sight of the rags tied together to form an impromptu pair of shorts and chest wrap. Holy crap! Naruto gasped from beside him. You mean the trap with the 3 lemons and the paper clip actually worked? Madara really was a genius. Ino tried to charge forwards to rend Naruto into pieces, but collapsed on the grass before she could even cover a third of the distance. Looks like I've been slacking off. Asuma sighed. Naruto, I'll hire you again next week for another round, but remember to pop by tomorrow for the paper. Shikamaru gave his sensei a pained look, then slumped onto the ground. Before then, though, I think a finishing spar would be a good idea. All 3 genin of Team 10 glared at their sensei. Well, don't you look like the cat that ate the cream? Hayate called as Asuma walked into the Jonin bar. One of the new genin's gonna need a nickname. Asuma called back, catching everyone's attention. I just finished watching him give my team the runaround all round Konoha, then beating them all in a single spar. He's a real challenge as an antagonist. Uzumaki Naruto. Kurenai asked from where she was sitting with Anko, and Asuma nodded. I've hired him several times to provide opposition for my team. Since I trade training with him, and Hinata helps him with his reading skills, I don't really need to pay all that much for his help. How can one new genin take on a full team? A voice called. Asuma and Kurenai looked at each other and chorused the answer. Kage Bunshin. He can generate several hundred of them and keeps coming up with new tricks using them. Kurenai added. Yesterday, he had some henge into caltrops, then they transformed back and dogpiled my team when they were halfway across the field. He pulled a double Kawarami in the finishing spar I asked him to do. Asuma noted. He Kawarami'd away from Shikamaru's shadow technique, leaving a log in his place, then when Shikamaru turned away, he swapped back and took him down. Diam. One of the Jonin whistled in awe. How the hell did none of us consider doing that before? I know what I'll be practicing tonight. Op Force. Anko said, and everyone looked at her in confusion. What? You two are hiring him to be just that? Op Force Uzumaki. Has a nice ring to it. Yosh. Guy shouted from the corner, causing several of the Jonin to jump as they hadn't actually realized that he was there. Truly he is ablaze with the flames of youth. Tomorrow I shall hire him for my squad. You do know he does morning wall patrols, right? Asuma asked. Op Force and the Eternal Genin. Anko sniggered. Kid's probably already learned more from Kosuke than he learned in his years at the academy. Now that he can actually read, yes. Kurenai agreed, and almost half the Jonin stared at her. Hold on. Asuma said slowly. What exactly do you mean, now that he can read? Kurenai looked round at the silent crowd. If he managed to pass when he couldn't read, Asuma continued, just how far have the academy standards dropped since we were Genin? Naruto flopped onto his bed with a satisfied sigh and closed his eyes. His daily clone lessons with Hinata had gone very well, to the point that between his own determination and Hinata's memories of helping him learn, he was finally up to the educational level he should have been at. A sudden rush of memories flooded into his mind, and he concentrated on sorting out the data accumulated by his research clones. A few seconds later, his bed was empty and his front door was swinging shut. And done. Hiruzen sighed as he passed the last stack of paper to his assistant. Well, I think that I've done enough for today. The assistant edged out of the room, being careful not to drop any of the sheets of paper, and Hiruzen slid open one of the drawers in his desk, pulling out an orange-covered book. Let's see, escaped the castle, in the cave, where is, aha. In the cave Enrai is helping Zuna to warm up, he. Jiji. The echoing shout gave Hiruzen just enough time to slam the book closed, drop it back in the drawer, slam the drawer shut and reposition himself to face the door a bare quarter second before Naruto raced in. I wasn't aware that I had invited you to a sleepover. Hiruzen joked, and Naruto glanced down at his pajamas. No time for joking. He panted. Jiji, this is real important, like, very important. As Naruto repeated the word important, he flashed 4 fingers at Hiruzen and shot a significant glance at the row of pictures on the wall, the row showing all 4 Hokages. Hiruzen paled and quickly channeled chakra into an otherwise insignificant portion of his desk. We're secure, he said, praying that his concern was misplaced. What is it? I've been having clones doing research for me and I've finished putting things together, Naruto said, leaning on the desk. When were you going to tell me that my old man was the Yondaime? Hiruzen stared at the young Genin. Chapter 9, Revelations of a New Genin. When were you going to tell me that my old man was the Yondaime? Hiruzen stared in shock at the young Genin, then he gathered his wits. Tell me what you've worked out and what you think might be, but are unsure about, he commanded. First, my parents were Uzumaki Kushina and Yondaime Hokage Namikaze Minato, Naruto stated. I've seen a picture of him at the academy, draw whiskers on him and he looks almost exactly like me. Since he had enemies that are still around, they would almost certainly try to kill me to get to him, even though he's dead. Second, they both died on the night that I was born and the Kyuubi attacked. Somehow, I doubt that it was a coincidence, but I don't know for sure. Third, something happened to the Kyuubi at the Valley of the End when Hiroshima and Mito faced off against it, something that kept it hidden until I was born. I can't help but think that my birth had something to do with it, but I can't make the connection. Kasan wasn't even alive back then. Fourth, the Kyuubi was sealed into me. How did Dad know it was possible to do that? Has it been done before? Hiruzen held up a hand to stem Naruto's rapid-fire statements and questions. You have most of the pieces, Hiruzen admitted. Your mother was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi before you, but she was the second one. Uzumaki Mito, the woman who became Hiroshima's wife, was the first. She transferred the burden to your mother when she was dying. The seal used on a female Jinchuriki to contain the Biju weakens when she gives birth, which is one of the reasons why your mother moved to a hideout outside the village walls when you were due to be born. We don't know what happened, but your parents died to reseal the Kyubi, leaving only you and no witnesses. My wife was helping your mother, but she was killed by whoever or whatever caused your mother's seal to break. I had intended to tell you all of this when you either turned 16 or you reached the rank of Chunin, since either would hopefully mean you could learn it without instantly running off to shout out the news all over the village, alerting your father's enemies and getting killed as a result. Since you found most of it out, though. Hiruzen trailed off and Naruto nodded thoughtfully. Did they leave anything for me? Not as much as you might think. Hiruzen admitted. Kushina was the last of the Uzumaki from Uzushiagakuer, and when it fell, all her family's wealth was lost, either destroyed in the attack or seized by the other villages. As for your father, well, the position of Hokage doesn't actually pay all that well, and his custom kunai were relatively expensive, especially with how many he used, so your father never amassed a large fortune. There are several technique scrolls from your parents, your mother's Fuinjutsu scrolls, and a more eclectic collection that your father owned, but most of those were damaged in the Kyubi's attack. Fortunately, there are those who know your father's two most famous moves, the Rasengan and the Hiraishin. Can I meet them? Naruto asked, and Hiruzen frowned. Those who know the Rasengan or those who know the Hiraishin? For now, the Hiraishin. Naruto decided after several seconds of deep thought. While learning Dad's attack jutsu would be cool, I think I should pay more attention to the technique that lets me escape to fight another day. 2 of them are currently on a mission, and it takes all 3 of them to perform the technique. Hiruzen said. I'm afraid you'll need to wait a couple of weeks to see it in action. Naruto nodded, then glanced at the clock and cursed. Kuso. I really need to get some sleep, or I'll be late for my practice with Hinata-chan tomorrow, and I have a D-rank helping Team 9 after that. Practice? Is that what they're calling it now? Hiruzen chortled as he lowered the security seals. Damn it, Arrow Jiji. Ah, Naruto. You have joined us. Naruto grinned nervously at Guy's bombastic greeting, then looked at the trio of genin staring at him. Tenten. Hi, Naruto. Tenten replied with a smile. Ah. So you know this paragon of youthfulness. Tenten rolled her eyes. Yeah, he came to Dad's to replace his old bright orange rags with something more suited to being a shinobi. He was with your cousin and her teacher, Neji. Neji glared at Naruto for a long moment before turning away. And the mini guy is Rock Lee. Tenten said with a wave of her hand. I am pleased to meet you. Naruto blinked, wondering if he should try a genjutsu dispel. So. Guy boomed. Now you are here, we can begin. We will finish our warm-ups while you set a series of traps on the route we agreed on, then I shall send my genin in to test their youthful prowess. While they are doing so, I shall help you find a taijutsu style of your own. Naruto nodded and summoned 24 clones. Alright, guys. You know what to do. YOSH. It's done. Naruto said as he re-entered the clearing. That was fast, barely 20 minutes. Guy said with a slight frown. Kage Bunshin. Ah, of course. The Jonin exclaimed, his face brightening. So, my students, your task is simple. Make your way from one safe point to the next until your route brings you back here. The safe points are marked by yellow ropes on the ground in the shape of a square. Naruto added. There's also an arrow in each one pointing to the next safe point. Sounds simple enough. Tenten said. Is that the first one there? Naruto nodded and Lee seemed to blur into the rope-marked area. I see the arrow. It goes down the path. As the other 2 ran to catch up, Lee vanished down the path, only for a twang to sound, followed by a yelp of surprise. Snare trap. Naruto shrugged at Guy's inquisitive look. I see. Guy mused, then he grinned. It will be educational for them. Now, let us see about building a proper foundation for your youthful fighting skills. Show me your stances. Naruto started to move through the katas he had painstakingly learned under Ko's supervision, and Guy frowned. I see that you were taught badly at first, but someone, probably a Hyuga, has tried to help you correct it. Guy said. However, given your body shape, I believe I have a better style for you to learn. Son of a bitch. Neji cursed as the trap he had carefully triggered from a safe distance with a thrown kunai triggered no less than 3 other traps in turn, forcing him and his team to dodge out of the way of 3 logs, a spray of shuriken and 6 eggs. Neji blinked and grabbed one of the ovoids out of the air. Yep, an egg. Naruto-kun is most tricky with these traps. Lee exulted and he sprang back to his feet. Yeah, tell me about it. Tenten growled as she tried to brush the shattered egg out of her hair. It's like he knows all the standard ways to disarm traps and has set more traps against those methods. Then we shall have to use non-standard methods. Lee grinned as he stepped forwards, only for the path to cave in under his feet. Lee! Tenten shouted as she and Neji managed to grab the falling boy's arms and drag him back. For a long moment, the trio remained motionless, then Neji glanced over the edge of the pit and frowned. Who fills a trap pit with fish? What? Guy walked through the crowd of Narutos, correcting an occasional punch, altering the path of a palm strike or adjusting a stance. To one side, the real Naruto concentrated on the crunches, jumps, and push ups that he had been assigned. No. He said, stopping in front of one of the clones. You need to flow with this move, not clomp. Like this. The clone watched as Guy slowly moved through the 4-stage kata portion. Now try. I'm going to kill him. Neji panted, his normal reserve in abeyance as he knelt in the penultimate safe zone, his normally pristine appearance marred by innumerable stains, rips, tears and other less identifiable substances. He's tricky. Tenten gasped as she retied the sting holding her shredded top together. How is he so youthful in the art of traps? Lee asked, bouncing up and down as he prepared himself for the final stretch, ignoring the fact that he was missing an entire leg and sleeve from his spandex unitard while the torso resembled a net more than anything else, thus revealing that he wasn't wearing a vest underneath. I think I've seen him reading a book. Tenten mused as she rose to her feet. Something about traps by, who was it? Aha! Uchiha Madara. He was renowned for his trapping skills. Neji stated. There is a copy of his manual of traps in the Hyuga library, the only book in there that was written by an Uchiha. And the traps it shows. Tenten prompted. I have not read it. Neji admitted. But I will as soon as I get home. I will not let another day like this happen again. Then let's go. Lee shouted as he leapt forwards. Twang. Neji and Tenten shook their heads in disbelief as Lee bounced up and down, suspended by his ankle. Has he hit every snare trap we've come across? Tenten asked. Perhaps it is his fate. Tenten gave Neji a shocked look. Excellent. Guy declared as Naruto used the memories attained by his clones to flow smoothly through the first complete kata. You have done well, and it seems as though my youthful team has finished their training for today in the art of traps. Naruto turned and his eyes widened at the sight of the trio of bruised, battered and disheveled shinobi glaring at him. I think I'd better leave. Naruto said nervously as he saw Tenten's fingers twitching as if she was about to go for her kunai. Thanks for the lesson, Guy-sensei, bye. Guy blinked as Naruto sprinted off, then turned to his team. So, my youthful apprentices, he grinned, what lessons have you learned from this? Naruto needs to die. Neji ground out as Tenten nodded in agreement. Painfully. And slowly. That is not the lesson I was hoping for you to learn. Kosuke. Hiruzen. The genin replied as he sat down in front of the Hokage's desk. How goes Naruto's education? Kosuke blinked a couple of times, as if reordering his thoughts, before answering. The boy's an information sponge. I still have to dumb it down a bit, but nowhere near what his file says is needed. He also uses his clones to do research, all I have to do is mention a subject and he sends several clones to read up on it. Hiruzen nodded thoughtfully. I've been mainly covering the stuff the academy doesn't teach. Kosuke continued. International politics and why they're important, nonverbal communication, the acquisition of information through various means, battlefield psychology, and I'm going to have to seriously hurt the academy counselor for telling Naruto that he'd probably enjoy killing because he's a monster. I'll help. Hiruzen growled. Anyway, right now, Naruto could probably pass for Chunin in the non-physical aspects. I'm not certain about his physical skills, though. Might Guy has begun teaching him a new style. Hyuga KO occasionally drills him in the academy style, the proper forms, and he spars with several of the teams. Hiruzen supplied, causing Kosuke's eyebrows to shoot up. Really? My Koi is growing stronger, then. That's good. Hiruzen hid a smile at Kosuke's declaration. You know, there is a pile of mission requests for you building up. Kosuke shrugged. Give me the rest of the week on the wall and I'll start looking at them again. He's impressed you that much, has he? Hiruzen chuckled, then the amusement vanished. Any idea how he found out about who his parents were? Kosuke blinked as he carefully considered his answer. Well, he began, part of it is that I have, as I mentioned, been teaching him how to acquire information. Chapter 10, Discoveries of a New Genin. It's been an honor, senpai. Naruto said with a bow, which Kosuke returned. You have been an excellent student. Kosuke replied. Were I not going on a mission to the north, I would be happy to continue your education. You have already taught me more than I learned in the academy. Naruto shrugged. I know I still have a long way to go, but I'm finally on the right path thanks to you. Sensei. Kosuke smiled broadly, his eyes glittering with unshed tears of pride. I believe that you will reach your goal, and I will be there to bow to you. Naruto tried to speak, but he couldn't force the words out past the sudden blockage in his throat. I will see you again sometime. Koi. Kosuke smiled, then he vanished in a swirl of leaves. Naruto stared at where he had been, then looked down. Huh? What's this? Picking up the scroll, Naruto unrolled it slightly, then he grinned. Instructions for Shunshin? Thanks, Kosuke-sensei. Hinata threw herself into an airborne roll just shy of being a full somersault in order to avoid being tackled by a trio of Narutos. Her mind tried to pull up images of what she could do with 3 Narutos, but she suppressed the distracting thoughts with the ease of long practice even as she spun on one shoulder, delivering Gyuken strikes with her feet in order to clear some space. Bouncing back up, Hinata lashed out behind her, hearing the normal pop of a dissipating shadow clone. Gachuga. Kiba and Akamaru barreled through the attacking clones and Hinata pirouetted on the spot, allowing the duo to pass one either side of her so closely that her jacket rippled from the displaced air. Then she took advantage of the newly cleared path to sprint to where Shino was being overrun, taking out half of the clones mobbing him before they knew she was there. And done. At Kurenye's shout, the remaining clones vanished in clouds of chakra smoke, except for one which simply strolled to Kurenye's side. Stand down, students. Kurenai smiled and Hinata flopped into a sitting position, then she mentally winced as she saw KO watching from the sidelines. No doubt her lack of grace would be reported to the Hyuga Council. 12 minutes to destroy 100 attacking clones. Kurenai said approvingly as Kiba threw himself to the ground, panting for breath. Now, what went wrong? My taijutsu skills, although I am technically proficient in their katas, seem insufficient to situations such as this. Shino admitted. The problem is that your taijutsu skills are too perfect. Kurenai said, earning a confused tilt of the head. You do each move perfectly, in its entirety, before moving on to the next move. You need to learn to flow from one move to the next so that the end of one move should overlap with the start of the next. I see. Shino mused. I shall endeavor to correct that problem. Kiba, that last big attack of yours and Akamaru's almost hit Hinata. Kurenai continued. However, you managed to bracket her perfectly. Was it intentional? Shit, I almost hit Hinata. Kiba gasped. Sorry, I thought you were somewhere else. Situational awareness in combat. Kurenai said slowly. I see that we'll have to work on that. We had a few spare clones ready to switch if it looked like anyone was about to get seriously injured. The clone interjected. One of us was about to swap with Hinata until she did that awesome dance-like move between Kiba and Akamaru. Hinata blushed in pleasure at Naruto's comment. A sudden burst of chakra shocked the genin to their feet as Naruto appeared in the middle of the clearing, 7 feet above the ground. Yahoo! Naruto managed to turn his uncontrolled fall into a tumbling roll which would have ended with him back on his feet, if Hinata hadn't been in the way. Oof. Hinata opened her eyes to find Naruto staring at her in worry from inches away. Hinata-chan, are you alright? I'm sorry. Ahem. Naruto almost levitated off Hinata as KO coughed dramatically from just behind them. Hinata spared an instant to give a quick glare to a sniggering Kiba and smirking Kurenai before she held out her hand for Naruto. Taking his cue, he pulled her to her feet. Sorry, I was practicing the Shunshin and, well, I've almost got it. Not quite, boss. The clone called. See for yourself. The clone dispelled and Naruto managed to both pale and blush at the same time as he received the memory of his failure. Sorry, Hinata-chan. He said with a slight wince. I hope I didn't hurt you. I'm fine, Naruto-kun. Hinata smiled back at him. What book are we working through today? KO lifted an eyebrow as Naruto brandished a medical text. Basic primer for battlefield medicine. With my reserves, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to become a medicnin, but battlefield medicine, herbs, bandaging, setting bones and stuff, that I can learn and it'll really help on missions outside Konoha. Several of the Hyuga clan have chosen the path of the Irionin. KO commented. Our eyes give us a considerable advantage. I'm ready. Hinata said, and before KO could protest, she hugged Naruto, then a cloud of chakra smoke announced the formation of 2 clones, one of whom was Hinata. That felt weird. Naruto mused as he looked at Hinata. I've been using Gyukin for the last hour. Hinata explained. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to push like that. Shouldn't make any difference. Naruto mused. Hey, you two still us? I mean, are you, me and are you Hinata? I'm your clone, boss. The male clone announced while the female clone blushed slightly and poked her 4 fingers together. Yep, that's Hime-sama. See, no problems. Naruto shrugged. Now, I can give you some more clones, but then I've got another mission, with Team 7 this time. You know, this'll be the first time I've seen the I mean Sasuke and Sakura since the test. I wonder who the replacement for me is. Tobio. Naruto. The dark-haired genin waved. Hey, listen. I never got to say sorry for accidentally causing you and Sasuke to. That never happened. Both male genin roared, causing Toby to cringe, then they glanced at each other in surprise while Sakura started to giggle. I thought you were in a different team. Naruto asked, hoping to redirect the conversation, and Tobio shrugged. I was assigned to Team 3 with Raidomaru and Kainaku. We were given a test and the other 2 decided to squabble over who would do it better. I managed to do some of the test, but I couldn't do it all since the other 2 didn't help. Apparently that's why I was given a second chance on Team 7, because I was willing to try to work as part of a team. Wow, nice one. Naruto grinned, exchanging a high five with his former classmate. Why are you here, Naruto? Sakura asked. And why are you still wearing a Hitai? Didn't you go back to the academy? He's an independent genin. Sasuke supplied before Naruto could answer, and Sakura stared at him in confused shock. What? After that fiasco of a test, I checked the Uchiha archives and discovered the difference between an academy-promoted genin and a mission-promoted genin. So, am I correct in assuming that you're the opposition for this afternoon's training? Yep, you're going up against Op 4 Uzumaki. Kakashi said from behind them, causing all 4 genin to jump in shock. Now, if you'll excuse us, I need to discuss the situations we'll be setting you up against. The trio stared in shock as Kakashi, who was early, vanished with the blonde genin. What just happened? Sakura finally asked. Lord Hokage told me you found out about your parents. Kakashi said as they reappeared amongst the trees. The fourth, your sensei. Naruto replied quietly. And his wife, who was the second to bear the burden I now have. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Kakashi sighed. I wasn't in a good place mentally after Sensei died. It took me several years to get myself back together. By that time, the other villages were keeping an eye on me since they thought that if Sensei had an heir, I would be the one to act as guardian. So you stayed away to keep me safe. Naruto finished. And trying to get me on your team. To try to protect you and repay the debt I owed your parents. Kakashi confirmed. I knew I'd be assigned Sasuke, so I thought that the other villages would assume you were merely there to bulk out the team, not because of your heritage. Naruto nodded. I understand, Hatake-san. I do have two quick questions before we start planning what to do to your team. Do you know the Rasengan? And what about the Hiraishin? Kakashi held up his right hand, in which a sparkling sphere of chakra was spinning. This is the Rasengan, taught to me by your father. As for the Hiraishin, I was going to learn it, but the Kyuubi. Kakashi trailed off and Naruto nodded. That bastard fox screwed up so many things when it attacked. Yeah. For a long moment, the duo remained in silent contemplation of what could have been. We are going to do 3 scenarios, one after the other. Kakashi told his team as he unrolled a topographical map of Konoha and the surrounding environs. Scenario 1 is attacking a bandit camp with 30 bandits, some of whom may have had training equal to a new genin. You will be rescuing a hostage, me. Scenario 2 is protecting me as you get me to a secure location. I will not be moving faster than a civilian, nor will I defend myself beyond basic dodging, so you'll have to protect me for the journey from the camp here to the way station here. Expect up to 20 bandits for this. Scenario 3 is repelling an assault by a third group of bandits until reinforcements can arrive. For that one, I will be acting in my capacity as your Jonin sensei with the dummy taking the role of rescued civilian. The dummy has several bags of red-dyed water inside it representing its brains, heart, lungs, and gut. If any of those bags get stabbed, the scenario ends as a fail. Now, this is a map of the camp and I'll be in the open, in a wooden cage just here. There'll be guards here, here, and here with orders to terminate me if there's a rescue attempt, so you'll need to move fast. Other than that, how you do it is up to you. See you when you rescue me. Kakashi vanished and Sakura moved to the place where he had been, looking closely at the lines of the map. There's a ridge behind the camp here. She pointed out. If we take it and use kunai to nail the guards, we can then descend using a rope. We'll have to be careful. Sasuke interjected. I've heard nasty things about Naruto's trapping skills. He's probably got all of the primary approaches trapped, so we'll have to do what he doesn't expect, like circle round rather than head straight there. Tobio and Sakura both nodded in agreement. Naruto smirked as the trio set out for the first stage, then his eyes narrowed in appreciation as they took a side path, one of the few that he hadn't trapped. Now, how did you know to do that? He whispered as he started to rise, then he paused as 2 streams of memories flowed into his mind. I'm going to have to devote a lot of attention to learning those terms. I didn't even know what a gallbladder was, heck, I didn't even know it existed. Naruto closed his eyes as he concentrated on settling the memories correctly into his mind, then he reopened them. Time to move out. Hinata's eyes stared slightlessly as not 1, but 2 memory streams flowed into her mind. Hinata-sama. Ko asked quietly as Hinata paled, then blushed furiously. He thinks I'm really pretty. Hinata whispered, wavering slightly as her mind repeatedly replayed the memory from Naruto's clone of him stealing glances at her. He admires me. Ko managed to catch the Hyuga heiress as she collapsed, a huge smile spread across her face. Chapter 11, Experiences of a New Genin. Kakashi sat cross-legged in the wooden cage in the middle of the mocked-up bandit camp, reading his newest Icha-Icha book. Even though he seemed totally disinterested in anything happening outside his prison, he noted that Naruto's clones had set the camp up in a manner similar to a camp that he had taken out during his days in Umbu, a mission in which they had been led by none other than Nenshin Yui Kurenai as part of her evaluation for the rank of Jonin. Kakashi glanced round covertly, noting the places where he would have approached from, the places that looked like good approach lanes but were well guarded and the places which would be suicidal to attack from. No sign of any activity. One of the bandit clones reported to the Nukanin clone leader. The leader turned to respond, then a kunai slammed straight through his head, dispelling him. Attack! The bandit screamed. They're on the ridge. Gee! Another kunai slammed into his chest and the bandit vanished in a cloud of smoke. Putting his book away, Kakashi looked round, noting that the accurate throws were only happening near his position while the rest of the camp was being bombarded by Kaguya kunai Bun's hints. Now, when had Sasuke learned that? Or was it Tobio? It certainly wasn't Sakura, she didn't have the required chakra reserves. Sakura threw another pair of kunai and her hands flickered through the technique, multiplying the blades as they arced downwards. I'm down to 2/3. Tobio said as he pulled his hands off Sakura's shoulders and the kunoichi nodded. Okay, matching your chakra was rather more tiring than the scroll said. Sasuke. All guards near the cage neutralized. Sasuke reported. Sakura nodded and kicked at the stones tied to the ends of the coiled ropes. The stones dropped over the edge of the low cliff and Tobio crouched down as they went taut. Cover me as I go down. On it. Sasuke confirmed, a brace of kunai in each hand and Tobio swung himself over the edge. Think we got them all? Sakura asked quietly. There isn't any movement, but we can't relax yet. Sasuke muttered, then he leaned forward slightly. Tobio's reached the bottom. Let's go. Sakura swallowed as she made sure her grip was solid, then she let herself slide down the rope, landing between her two teammates. All clear so far? Tobio reported, his normal jocularity in abeyance. Then let's move. Sasuke commanded. Kakashi smiled as Sakura ignored the heavy padlock and thick chain holding the gate to the cage closed, instead slicing through the rope hinges. Sir, let's go. She said and Kakashi nodded as he stepped past the dismounted gate. You've done well so far. Stage 1 success. Now we have stage 2. Sakura sighed. We're avoiding the direct route. Sasuke said. It'll take longer, but there'll be less cover for ambushers and hopefully less traps. Well then, lead the way. Kakashi smiled. It's so wonderful to be escorted by such great ninja. His students stared at him blankly for a moment. Tough crowd. Naruto generated a dozen clones and sent them to disassemble the traps on the routes that Team 7 hadn't taken, since there was no point leaving them to trip up unwary passers-by. They had surprised him once again. He had expected them to take either one of the more direct routes, or the route that circled around the edge of the designated exercise area, but instead that had gone for one of the longer routes that he had only lightly trapped, and that as a mere precaution. He was going to have to consider carefully how to do the assault once Kakashi resumed his role as Jonin-sensei. Yipe! Tobio dived to the ground as a spray of blunted kunai were fired across the path. Even as the thunk of the launcher sounded, Sasuke was already leaping forwards to deflect the projectiles and take out the launcher. Sakura helped Tobio to his feet as the sound of splintering wood announced Sasuke's discovery of the launcher, then he re-emerged from the bushes and Sakura gasped. Those traps are sneaky. Sasuke grumbled. What I want to know is how he got those kunai to fly so slowly. It almost threw me off, but I won't let him beat me. Tobio wordlessly pulled out a kunai and held it up in front of Sasuke's face. What am I meant to be looking? Wow, Sasuke! Sakura gushed. You've activated your Sharingan. Sasuke stared in shock at the reflection of his now red eyes, then he started to grin. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Kakashi admitted. He's activated his Sharingan. Naruto gawped as the memory popped up in his mind. Damn, I'm going to have to change my plans for the third stage, or he'll be copying my jutsu left, right and center. Then again, he doesn't know I know about his eyes, so I may be able to use that to my advantage. Let's move. Sasuke commanded with a smirk. He won't know I've activated my blood limit, so he won't be expecting it. That should help give us an advantage. There it is. Sakura whispered as she pointed. Both her teammates followed her gaze to the collection of boulders perched on top of the hill. Excellent. Sasuke mused. Cover, concealment, open approaches. As long as Naruto doesn't use too many clones, we should be able to hold that position. I'll check it out, Tobio said as he sprinted ahead, vaulting over one of the lower boulders. A moment later, he reappeared and waved for them to approach. Well, stage 2 is complete, Kakashi said as he entered the stone circle and smiled at the sight of the dummy that was taking his role. Naruto had decorated it with a white, spiky wig, an eye patch and an orange book. As the genin familiarized themselves with the impromptu fortification, Kakashi glanced at the book, finding it to be a blank notepad. All right, Kakashi called. We should have between 5 and 15 minutes to set up, but don't count on it. You three take the left, right and rear respectively while I hold the front, since if we were being tracked, that's where the majority will come from. We just need to hold until relieved. The trio of genin nodded as they moved to their respective walls. Atayayayayayayak. Kakashi's eye widened as the horde of clones burst out from the tree line. It wasn't the numbers that surprised him, there were actually less than he expected. It was the fact that the clones were holding jury-rigged shields made from woven branches, shields thick enough that a normal kunai throw would have difficulty penetrating them. Damn! Sasuke shouted. They've got shields. Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Kakashi nodded as he flashed through a series of hand seals himself. Katon, Hosenka no Jutsu. A barrage of small fireballs impacted on the wooden shields, igniting several of them and scorching most of the rest. The clones behind the burning shields didn't drop them, but instead sprinted forwards, and Kakashi's eye narrowed as he realized that they were trying to create a smoke screen so that he couldn't see their approach. Very clever, Naruto, he whispered as his hands flashed through a new set of seals. Just what I expected from my sensei's son. Suiden no Jutsu. Kakashi pulled down his mask and spat out a long blast of water before pulling his mask up again fast enough that no one had a chance to see his face. Okay, I didn't see that coming, Naruto mused. I think it's time for a diversion. Sasuke blinked in surprise as the clones who had been trying to attack suddenly pulled back, leaving only one standing in the middle of the open area. Now you've done it, the clone shouted. Prepare to face the wrath of the Uzumaki Hijutsu, the Kage killer. Proven when it took down the Hokage. Sasuke grinned mentally as he activated his Sharingan. He would copy the technique and use it against Naruto. The look on his face would be priceless. Both of them blazed through a sequence of hand seals and in unison shouted out, Orioke no Jutsu. Sakura spun round in shock. Tobio blinked. What did Sasuke just say? Sasuke felt a wave of chakra pass through him and his center of gravity shifted, his back felt chilled, and on the field a naked blonde girl waved at him before blowing him a kiss and vanishing. What the hell? He asked, then paused. His voice was pitched higher than normal. Suspiciously, he looked down at himself and then suddenly he remembered just where he had heard the name of that technique from. What the fuck? Damn it, Naruto, how do I end this damn technique? The high-pitched squeal of feminine fury combined with his clone's memories caused Naruto to fall over, clutching his sides as he howled with laughter. The clones also stopped attacking as they bent over laughing and Kakashi sighed. Exercise terminated, he shouted. Someone tell Sasuke how to change back from Sasuke. The Uchiha in question glared at him, even as she tried to cover her breasts and groin. Just, pulse, chakra, concentrate, on, form. One of the clones gasped and Sasuke closed her eyes in concentration before reverting back to his male form in a cloud of chakra smoke. That. Sasuke growled, then he glared at Tobio, who was wiping some blood off his upper lip. You know, you made a cute girl. Sakura giggled and Sasuke stomped off. I'm never going to hear the end of this, am I? Damn it, Dub, how the hell could you claim that this, Orioke no Jutsu could take out the Hokage? Because boss used it to KO the old man when he was taking the scroll. One of the clones managed. Jiji hit the wall so hard, it left a dent. Look just opposite the office door, but to the right. Sasuke sighed as the humor of the situation finally started to filter through his embarrassed anger. Damn it, it's just the sort of thing I can see the dope doing. And now I can. I'm going to end up in a situation where I have to use that damned technique, aren't I? In the land of hot springs, a large, white-haired man lowered his telescope and frowned into the distance. My senses tell me that something rather perverted and yet exceedingly humorous just happened. He muttered to himself. For a long moment, he didn't move, then he shrugged. Ah well, back to research. He. Yes. Kakashi was still sniggering as he led his team back to the tower half an hour later. As they opened the door, Sasuke sighed at the twinkle of amusement in the Hokage's eyes. You know? He accused and the Hokage nodded. How? Hiruzen pointed at the crystal sphere on his desk. Damn it. Language. Sasuke-chan. Kakashi giggled. Morning, Hinata-chan. Naruto called as he ran up to where Team 8 was assembling. I really pulled a fun trick on the Teme yesterday and... Hinata? What's wrong? What did I do? Naruto shot a pleading glance at Kurenai, who responded with a confused shrug. Naruto? Hinata whispered. Remember how yesterday I accidentally added some chakra to our clones? Yeah, why? It gave me the memories of your clone. Hinata continued, so quietly that Naruto almost didn't hear her. I know how you feel about me, thank you. Naruto caught Hinata in a hug. You don't hate me for that. He whispered and Hinata shook her head as she returned his hug. Thank you. You're not mad I got your clone's memories? Hinata asked in shock and Kurenai inhaled sharply. Nah, you've been giving me your memories, so it's only fair you get mine. Naruto replied, still hugging Hinata tightly. I'd be a real jerk if I thought you getting my memories was a bad thing. I only hope you don't get my habit of being a clueless idiot at times. You are not a clueless idiot. Hinata protested, breaking free of Naruto's hug and grabbing his shoulders so that she could glare at him. I mean it, if you call yourself an idiot again, I'll give him a good kissing. Kiba supplied as Hinata struggled to find a threat she could use. Give you a good kissing. Hinata finished, then suddenly she turned bright red. Eep. Kiba fell over laughing as Hinata fainted with a blush so bright that Kurenai was rather surprised that it hadn't tinted the surrounding area. That was not a nice thing you did, Kiba. Shino droned. However, it was amusing. Uzumaki. Everyone turned to see three shinobi standing by the edge of the field. Uzumaki Naruto. The leader asked again and Naruto nodded. My name is Tatami Iwashi. Lord Hokage sent us. Chapter 12, Progress of a New Genin. Hayashi tilted his head slightly as he listened to Kurenai's report. Inuzuka-tsame and Aburame Shiki flanked him, both as intent on listening as he was. So, if I understand what you have said, he interjected as Kurenai finished her report, by training with Uzumaki Naruto, my daughter's capabilities have increased considerably. Kurenai nodded. Hinata had a problem with holding back too much in her spars until Naruto came up with a way to motivate her. And that way was... Hayashi prompted. I only ask because, in the last month, my daughter has started to win the sparring matches that she has against her sister. Her adaptation of our fighting art to include strikes launched through kicks has been a very unpleasant surprise for those of us who have gone up against her as well. She's working on launching strikes from her knees and elbows as well. Kurenai shrugged. Naruto's idea, his fighting style is very unpredictable, even more so now that it's been rebuilt and honed by Might Guy. And the motivation he used? Hayashi inquired. Kisses. Kurenai mumbled. Hayashi raised an eyebrow as Tsame snorted with laughter. On the cheek, I hope. Kurenai nodded and Hayashi relaxed slightly. Then I have no problem with this. Shikaku frowned as Sarutobi Asuma finished the monthly feedback. So, you have them spar weekly against Uzumaki-san. He stated. I had wondered why Shikamaru had decided that not doing physical training was far more troublesome than actually doing it. My little princess came home the first time in a jacket she borrowed from Koji. Inoichi reminisced. Her actual clothing that day was little more than rags tied together, something that she blamed Naruto for. Since then, she's been reading that trap book by Uchiha Madara almost religiously in her spare time, when she isn't training, that is. Koji's started doing more exercise as well. Chaoza agreed. He's building up quite a respectable amount of muscle, he can pick me up now. I think we owe OpForce our thanks for getting our kids interested in actually training. The other two fathers chuckled in agreement. Kakashi took a sip of tea, somehow drinking it through his mask. So, yes. He said. Your daughter has improved greatly from her academy days. That's good to hear. Haranomabuki smiled. She's been eating more healthily, too. Probably the training. Kakashi mused. After she collapsed for the fourth time, I had a long discussion with her about how limiting her food intake would lead to me releasing her from the team. Rather harsh. Kaizashi frowned. But it worked, that's the main thing. Naruto Koi. Kasuke-senpai. Naruto grinned as he spun to face the older genin. I trust your missions went well. They did. Kasuke replied, returning the bow Naruto had given him. I've finally heard about your new nickname, OpForce. Kage Bunshin. Naruto explained with a shrug. I kinda trade opponents that others can go all out against for training in things I'm weak at. Sensible. Kasuke said. So, can I see how far you've come? Perhaps a quick spar, followed by a meal. Of course, you'll have to go easy on me, I'm an old man. Ha, old like a bonsai. Naruto shot back. The older you get, the tougher you get, just like Jiji. Kasuke smiled as he led the way to the sparring ground that he had reserved before setting out to find his young apprentice. Hayashi paused at the sight in front of him. The entirety of Training Ground 14 was a mass of rusty orange-clad genin, most of whom were practicing various portions of katas or doing chakra control exercises. Near the middle, however, several dozen clones were in a whirling combat with none other than the Eternal Genin, who was using a walk as a shield on one arm while he wielded a tanto in the other hand, the blade seeming to blur and dance as he moved through the attackers with the ease of decades of experience. Hayashi simply stood to one side, his eyes taking in the scene before him, noting the custom style that Naruto was training in. Several of the moves looked oddly familiar and Hayashi realized that, body differences aside, they were almost identical to a few of the moves that Hinata had begun incorporating into her own fighting style. Hyuga-sama. Hayashi glanced to his side where yet another Naruto stood. Good afternoon, Uzumaki-san. Hayashi replied. Are you the original? No, boss is over there, doing physical training to increase his physical abilities. The clone said, waving one hand towards the furthest corner of the training field. But he will get your memories once you dispel and you know all that he does. Hayashi stated. Pretty much, yes. The clone replied, thoughtfully. Then I shall speak with you as if you are the original. Walk with me. Hayashi commanded as he turned and moved away from the field. The duo walked in silence for several moments before Hayashi spoke. My daughter is very attached to you, Naruto-san. As a father, I must take an interest in this. What are your intentions towards Hinata? Whatever she wants them to be. The clone replied almost at once. Boss owes Hinata big time. She shared her memories with us while she was helping Boss, which is why we know that she actually likes us, although we still don't really get why. We admire her. We would never do anything to hurt her. And if anyone tries to hurt her, they will regret it. Despite his self-control, Hayashi's eyebrows rose slightly at the sheer amount of determination and protectiveness in Naruto's voice. Emotions that he could respect. I see. He said after a long pause. That attitude is commendable. That means good, right? The clone asked and Hayashi hid a sigh. Yes, Naruto-san, it does. Ah, good. The clone sighed in relief. We hadn't come across that word before. Iwashi. Hiruzen said with a slight smile. Have you succeeded? Uzumaki has the strangest way of learning that I've ever come across. Iwashi said by way of reply as he sat in the seat that Hiruzen indicated. It does have limits, though. He's probably got enough chakra to duplicate one, maybe two of you, but any more than that, he'll need to start opening gates. Really? I'll have to think about that. Hiruzen mused. And has he learned the technique? He has learned how we do it, Iwashi said. He does it in conjunction with 2 clones, as long as one of the 3 is flesh and blood, all 3 perform great. If all 3 are clones, it still works, but the clones dispel before they can stabilize. I handed him the original scroll as you commanded, but I don't know if he'll learn to do it solo. I can't, and I've been trying for years. His method though, we're working on replicating it ourselves. Until he does learn the solo method, it won't be useful in combat for him. Hiruzen mused. Nevertheless, you've done a good job. You and the others will be paid a B rank for this. Iwashi stood and bowed. Thank you, Lord Hokage. Dismissed. Naruto dismissed his 2 clones and looked round at the dusty room. Oh, wow. He breathed as he saw the open racks filled with kunai resting on wooden pegs. Awesome. A picture on the mantelpiece caught his attention and he walked over to it, reaching out with a trembling hand to trace the faces of the 2 people in it. Mom. Dad. He breathed as he picked up the picture, then he turned it over. Minato and Kushina with their beloved son, Naruto. He read before turning the picture back. But where am? Naruto stopped as his eyes caught the bulge that Kushina was cradling. This was taken while she was pregnant with me. He realized. I have to show this to Hinata-chan, wait. Naruto looked around and his gaze settled on a wooden box underneath the weapons racks on the wall beside the kunai. I wonder. He mused, his gaze moving between the box and the kunai. I wonder. Maybe I should talk to Jiji first, then Hinata-chan. Please pardon the interruption, but Uzumaki Naruto seeks an audience with Hinata-sama. Hayashi exchanged a glance with the eldest of his 2 daughters, then back at the branch member standing by the door. Show him in. The branch member bowed and seemed to vanish. This way, Uzumaki-san. Naruto paused in the door and glanced at the 3 Hyuga. Ah, I didn't mean to interrupt. If this is a bad time. Not at all, Uzumaki-san. Hayashi said. You are always welcome here. I do not believe that you know my youngest daughter, Hanabi. Hanabi, this is Uzumaki Naruto, also known as Op Force Uzumaki. Ah, you heard that name, huh? Naruto coughed in embarrassment, rubbing the back of his head. Yeah, I'm kinda getting quite a few missions cause of that. Be seated. Hayashi said, motioning to the space next to Hinata. You wished to speak to us. Naruto gave Hanabi a look and Hayashi nodded. Hanabi, perhaps you should go to the dojo and start practicing your katas. Hayashi suggested and Hanabi rose to her feet, pouting slightly. Yes, father. Naruto watched her leave, closing the door after her, and then a brief pulse of chakra from Hayashi caused lines of Fuinjutsu to momentarily pulse into visibility. We are secure. Hayashi stated. You may say whatever you wish. This is kinda hard. Naruto admitted. Hinata, I know you've seen how many of the civilians don't like me. Well, it all goes back to these 2. Naruto pulled a picture out of his Haori and Hinata accepted it. This is the Yondaime. And his wife, Uzumaki Kushina. Hayashi added. You knew about that? Naruto asked in shock. Look at the back. Hinata turned it over. Minato and Kushina with their beloved son. Naruto. Your father. Was the Yondaime? Naruto confirmed. And my mother was the 2nd Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Hinata looked at Naruto. The 2nd. Senju Mito, born Uzumaki Mito, was the 1st. Naruto explained. She passed the burden to my mother. And so they sacrificed themselves to seal the Kyuubi into me, making me the 3rd Jinchuriki. Naruto finished. However, word got out about my burden, and since civilians generally don't understand sealing, they decided that I was the Kyuubi. Then they're stupid. Hinata exclaimed before glancing at her father and seeming to shrink. I agree with you, Hinata. Hayashi said calmly. I assume you had the Hokage's permission to tell us this. I'm allowed to tell whoever I think can be trusted. Naruto replied with a shrug. Hinata deserves to know this now, cause when my parentage finally comes out, there'll be a lot of people trying to kill me as being the heir of the Yellow Flash. Others will be angry that the demon child could actually be related to the greatest hero of a generation. In other words, things'll get noisy and dangerous. I'll be there for you. Hinata whispered, kissing Naruto on his cheek, then she froze as she remembered her father's presence. Actually, this situation could help me resolve a problem I have with the Hyuga elders. Hayashi mused. Hinata, how would you like to be engaged to the son of a Kage? As Naruto stared blankly at Hayashi, Hinata let out a squeal of joy and wrapped her arms around Naruto. Son of a Kage? You lovely baka. Hinata whispered in his ear. Yes. It would mean Hanabi-chan wouldn't be at risk of receiving the caged bird seal. And neither would you, my daughter. Hayashi agreed. Of course, the actual marriage would not be able to take place until either you are both shinin or of a rational age, say, 16. Naruto looked at Hinata's smile and nodded. As long as Hinata-chan's happy with it, then so am I. Excellent. Hayashi stated, then he rose to his feet, glancing at where Hinata was hugging Naruto, neither of them paying any attention to anything other than the other. Yes, I can foresee that this will save me a great deal of aggravation from the elders. Oh, I almost forgot. Naruto half shouted as he extricated himself from Hinata's grasp. I have a couple of things for you. Here's the first. Hinata took the silver chain necklace with the engraved tag on it, the embossed Uzumaki spiral glinting in the light. What's this? My father gave it to my mother to wear when they got engaged. Naruto said, and Hinata handed it back to him and turned round. Can you put it on for me, Naruto-kun? Hayashi hid a smirk as Naruto gently placed the necklace around Hinata's neck and fastened the catch. There you go, Hinata-chan. Hinata looked down at the tag resting on her chest, then spun round and glomped Naruto, toppling them both to the ground. You know, just because I approve the engagement, it does not mean that you can try to get a room to yourselves yet. Hayashi snarked and both teens leapt to their feet, blushing furiously. Chapter 13, Journey of a New Genin. Hayashi looked up at the knock on the door frame. Ah, Naruto. He said, motioning for the blonde to enter. You sent for me, Hayashi-dano. I did. Hayashi said. I have a mission I would like you to take, although I must apologize for the lack of warning. It will last several weeks and starts tomorrow morning. I will pay personally for it and I believe that it will be your first C rank. May I ask what the mission is? Naruto asked. You may. A new voice said and Naruto half turned. Jiji. Kurenai looked at her team proudly. You all packed? She asked and her 3 genin nodded. I have clothes and supplies for 3 weeks and 2 storage scrolls. Hinata said. 2 weeks, plus stuff for Akamaru. Kiba stated. 2 weeks. Shino said quietly. So, we ready to go? A new voice called and Kurenai turned. Indeed we are, Tajuna-sama. Good. The elderly civilian said. Hang on, I thought I was only getting 4 of you. Heh, there's 5 of us. Kiba said, pointing to Akamaru who was perched on his head. I wasn't counting the puppy. Tajuna said with a frown. Who's the blonde? Teammate stared at him, then turned to see the grinning genin behind them. Hey guys. Naruto grinned, tossing a small scroll to Kurenai. Odd thing, I've got a mission that takes me to Wave as well, so if you don't mind, I'll tag along with you guys. That okay? Kurenai opened the mission scroll and scanned it before rolling it up again. We'll be glad to have you along. She smiled as she handed the scroll back. Cool. Naruto grinned. I even stopped by Ichiraku's and filled a scroll with piping hot ramen for our first evening meal on the road. I remembered your faves and even got a bowl of beef for Akamaru. Best tag-along ever. Kiba cheered. Hua. There they go. Hiruzen said, concentrating on the image in the crystal sphere. Their first C-rank mission. At least if something happens, backup will be available. Hayashi looked up from the sphere with a quizzical expression. Hokage-sama. Ah, I don't think it's my secret to tell. Hiruzen smirked, earning an irritated glare from the Hyuga clan head. You know, this is my first time actually outside Konoha. Naruto commented as they stepped through the main gate. I've looked through the gate and across from the top of the walls, but I've never actually been outside the walls, until now. I kinda expected it to feel different. Kiba sniggered for an instant before Shino dope slapped him. I also have never departed from the protected environs of Konoha before today. He intoned. I fully understand Naruto-san's reaction. Yeah. Kiba grumbled. Akamaru and I've been out here loads. There's some good hunting over there. Then let us hope that we are not the ones being hunted. Kurenai stated, before she frowned. Naruto, why did you just send out a dozen clones? Scouts. Naruto explained. Between my clones, Hinata Hime's Byakugan, Kiba's ears and nose and Shino's Kikaicho, no one's going to get near your client. True. Kiba smirked, then he frowned. Hey, Naruto, just what mission do you have that sends you to Wave? I'm not complaining, it's cool having an army ready to defend us, but what exactly is the mission? Classified. Naruto smirked and Kurenai raised a hand to hide her smile. So. Kiba said as the gates of Konoha slowly receded into the background. You. Fully equipped for this mission too. 4 weeks of supplies, enhanced medical kit, reserve currency bundle, backup weapons, tags, yep, I'm ready. How? Kiba yelped. That must have cost loads. Since I'm no longer paying rent, I now have more money. Naruto shrugged. That reminds me, when we get back, I'll have to show you my new house, Hinata-chan. It's kinda out of the way, being in a small valley behind the Hokage monument, but it's mine now. It's where I found the picture I showed you. I'd like that. Hinata murmured with a smile. You have a house. Kiba half moaned. I still live with my mom and sis. I gotta start earning more so I can get a den of my own. Sensei, are we allowed to do solo D ranks? Elite genin like yourself are not encouraged to take solo D ranks. Kurenai replied. Among other reasons, independent genin like Naruto need the income. Damn. Kiba grumbled. Well, bud, looks like we gotta stay where we are for now. Akamaru let out a small whine. I know. Kiba sighed, then he brightened up. Hey, if we defeat any bandits on this mission, we'll get rewarded for it. We'll need to send them back to Konoha for the reward to be registered. Kurenai said. That's the reason why we Jonin often carry prisoner scrolls, although they can only hold the prisoner for a day or two before they fail. Sounds like a project for you, Naruto-kun. Hinata giggled. Kurenai-sensei, Hinata said as she deactivated her Byakugan, there are 2 shinobi hiding in a small hole covered with a genjutsu of a puddle just over the hill. They are wearing horned head protectors, one with a single horn and one with 2. Kurenai stopped walking and pulled a book out of one of her hidden pockets. She started to leaf through it, then paused before handing it to Hinata. Can you find them for me? Hinata quickly flicked through the book, then paused. Here, sensei. The demon brothers Gozu and Miizu, formerly of the Hidden Mist Village. Kurenai read. Individually classified as low to mid-C rank, when acting together, threat rating is high B rank. Taijutsu focus with poison secondary. Reward, 60,000 ryo each or 150,000 if captured together. 150,000 ryo. Kiba breathed. I could buy a really neat den with that. Rewards get split between the party that captures them. Kurenai commented. Genin get a single share, Chunin get 2 shares, Special Jonin 3 and Full Jonin get 4. That would grant each of us genin 18,750 ryo while Kurenai-sensei will receive 75,000. Shino mused. What? Kiba yelped. I have an idea. Naruto said with a lopsided grin. It'll help us gain actual combat experience without the risk. Hinata's eyes widened in realization. Here they come. Gozu whispered as the group crested the hill and strolled down the path towards them, the members throwing glances at the nearby woods. Amateurs. SHHHH. The duo remained silent as the party of 6 passed by the puddle, then they launched themselves at the unsuspecting group. One down. Miizo gloated as their shuriken chain wrapped round the dark-haired woman and snapped taut, slicing through her and scattering her remains on the ground. The 4 genin froze and the duo took advantage of their hesitation to launch a barrage of kunai at their target, the old bridge builder. The kunai slashed through the air and impacted him, causing him to vanish in a cloud of chakra smoke. Huh! Gozo gasped as he froze, shocked by the unexpected turn of events. Then the genin were moving. One of them seemed to explode into a cloud of bugs that engulfed the 2 genin, blinding them. Gozo felt the chain detach from his brother's gauntlet and was about to follow suit when a new voice spoke, a feminine voice promising pain. 8 trigrams, 32 palms. A barrage of light yet incredibly painful strikes jolted Gozo like he was a puppet being shaken, then he collapsed to the ground, unable to command his muscles to move. Gachuga. The swarm of bugs lifted just in time for Gozo to see his brother being hammered into a tree by a swirling drill of chakra, a drill that dissipated to reveal the feral-looking one of the genin group. Oh yeah. Bring a crane for they are down. Well done. The Jonin's voice said approvingly and Gozo managed to turn his eyes to see a second group approaching, a group identical to the first. Huh. He managed. We're Kage Bunshin. The feral genin gloated. I hope you like the fact that you got owned by clones. Gozo would have groaned, but the effects of the strikes were too much and he fell into blackness, never seeing the clones vanish in puffs of smoke. Oh yeah, we rule. Kiba gloated. Did ya see how I slammed him into a tree? You all did very well. Kurenai smiled as her genin finished assimilating the memories that they had received. However, the actions of our adversaries has raised several questions. Like how do we get them back to Konoha for the reward? Kiba asked. You don't need to worry about that. Naruto said reassuringly as he created 10 clones which moved to pick up the downed genin. My clones can take them back and tell Jiji what we took them down. Who? 18,000 Ryo. Kiba gloated. A few more bounties like this and I'll be able to finally move out of Mom's house. Kurenai smiled at Kiba's happy dance, then turned to Tajuna. Now, she said, storm clouds seeming to form out of nowhere as she loomed over the alcoholic client. You will explain to me just what is going on. Tajuna whimpered as Kurenai's eyes started leaking fire. I wonder what they're discussing. Kiba wondered, looking over to where Tajuna was talking rapidly, but no sound was emerging because of the genjutsu field that Kurenai had enclosed herself and their client in. It looks like, what was that? What was what? Hinata asked as she activated her Byakugan while Shino released a swarm of Kikai. It come from the tree lean, a sort of flash of light, well, 3 of them. Kiba mused. I've never seen anything like it before. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Naruto said reassuringly. I'm pretty certain that it was something my clones did. Oh. Kiba said as he relaxed. Okay. Sorry. On the contrary, you did good. Naruto replied. I need to be more careful about using that technique, I didn't realize that the flash was that bright. Huh? What technique? We need to move to the next campsite. Kurenai called as she walked towards them, a guilty-looking Tajuna following her. There are decisions to make, and we need to discuss them. Man, that sucks. Kiba grumbled. I mean, a whole country being oppressed? We've got to do something about it. If this ghetto has hired one set of Nukenin to prevent Tajuna-san from completing his project, it is only logical to assume that there will be other obstacles in our path also, obstacles that will be more difficult to overcome. Shino provided. We will need reinforcements. And you will have them. A new, yet familiar voice said. Hokage-sama. Kurenai gasped and Hiruzen held up a hand. Only a Kage Bunshin, Kurenai. Now, let me talk to your client. The team watched as Hiruzen guided Tajuna away and erected a privacy jutsu. How the heck did he get here? Kiba asked in shock, then he turned to Naruto. And what was with that dozen clones you sent off? Where did they go? Naruto simply smirked. Tajuna has agreed to certain reparations for attempting to deceive us. Hiruzen stated as he led the shivering civilian back to the campsite. Continue with your mission, I will have another team moving to reinforce you by tomorrow morning, although it may take a day or so for them to catch up. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Kurenai said gratefully. As the first Jonin on site, you'll still be in charge. Hiruzen said, fixing her with a stern yet supportive look. I shall look forwards to reading your report. And yes, the bounty has already been paid into your accounts. Hiruzen's clone vanished just as Kiba let out a loud whoop of triumph. Oh yes. Personal Den, here. Come. I wonder who Hokage-sama is sending. Hinata mused thoughtfully as Kiba began another happy dance. As long as they're not super scary, I don't care. Tajuna quavered. Chapter 14, Technique of a New Genin. I'm not certain that this'll work. The boatman admitted, looking at the expanded party. I mean, one person, no problem. 5 or 6, harder but still just about doable, but 10? No. Even if my boat remains above the water, it'll go so slowly that we'll be intercepted no matter what I do. Asuma frowned and sent a questioning look at Kurenai, who shrugged. Anyone got a plan? Yeah, but it involves an S-class secret. Naruto sighed as he pulled out a 3-pronged kunai. Boatman, can you take this to the other side and throw it? That's a Hiraishin kunai. Asuma gasped. You know how to do it? Sure do. Naruto nodded. It's how I got the demon brothers back to Konoha, as well as your dad's clone back to us. However, it kinda costs. If my clones do it, it needs 3 of them to transport one person and they kinda dispel on arrival. Dunno why and I can't stop it, they just go poof, but they get the person there safely. If I'm one of the ones doing it, no dispel. Not a clue why. Just when I think I've finally got you figured out, you do something even more troublesome. Shikamaru grumbled. But I see your plan. You'll create 30 clones and move us all to where the boatman throws the kunai, right? You messed up your maths, Shika. Naruto gloated and the genius frowned for a moment. 10 of us, damn. Right, you'll only need 26 clones as you'll be part of the trio transporting Hinata. Everyone stared at him and he shrugged. What? It's obvious, the way you two keep looking at each other. I'll be off then. The boatman said, accepting the blade and tucking it into his tunic. So, the Hokage guard taught it to you then? Asuma stated and Naruto nodded. Yep, still failing to get the single-person version down though. Dunno why, you'd think it was an easy step if 3 clones of the same person can do it, but nope. Amen, the Yondaime was a genius. Shikamaru raised a mental eyebrow at the correction which no one else looked like they had caught. So. He continued to think out loud. Team 10 will someday need a way to knock someone out so that you can supply clones to take them to Konoha. I assume that there's a special cell in TNI where you can simply drop them off. Naruto nodded with a grin and Shikamaru sighed. Troublesome. Ino, you work with plants. I think you may need to start looking at anesthetics and poisons since you have the best access to the source materials. Ino opened her mouth to protest, then paused as Asuma nodded approvingly. Think how well it'll go with your new trap-making skills. Shikamaru added and Ino started to grin. Naruto suddenly looked up from where he was watching Asuma and Shikamaru play shogi. He's thrown it. Who's in the first wave? Kurenai and myself. Asuma stated as he flipped his king over to indicate that he was yielding. We're Jonin, we'll secure the area. You'd better send a clone with us so it can dispel to give the all clear. 30 clones then. Naruto sighed, ignoring the triumphant smirk from Shikamaru, who was putting the pieces away in their travel box. Teijokage Bunshin. A mass of pops announced the formation of Naruto's clones and Asuma nodded. Nice. Alright, I'm ready. Kurenai-san. I do. I mean, I am. Kurenai rapidly corrected herself. Sorry, I was distracted for a moment, I'm ready now. A trio of clones surrounded each Jonin, hands stretched out and touching in the seal of confrontation, then they vanished in a flash of golden light. That's what I saw. Kiba shouted in belated recognition. That's how you sent the demon brothers to Konoha. The other Genin gave Kiba a long look. What? You missed the whole conversation. Ino asked. What were you? Signal's been given. Naruto interrupted as he joined the two clones beside Hinata. Everyone stand up and get ready. The group appeared in a rapid-fire series of golden flashes and Tajuna looked round. That way, we'll be at my house in another hour or so. Naruto, detail 3 clones to guard Tajuna. Asuma said. If anything looks out of place, have them take him to Konoha until we decide it's safe to bring him back. Understood, Asuma-san. Naruto said as he generated another clone, which joined the 2 others that had helped him transport Hinata. By the way, how do you do it so quickly? Asuma asked as they set off. It takes the Hokage guard almost half a minute to do it and you do it in just a few seconds. Most of the delay is them matching and harmonizing their chakra. Naruto shrugged. Since I'm using clones, I can effectively skip that step since it's my chakra anyway. Means I can do it in just under 3 seconds, but that's still pretty much useless in a combat scenario. Damn useful outside combat, though. Asuma mused. I mean, get a safe house outside every city and courier missions will be done, in a flash. Damn it, Naruto. Shikamaru groused. Do you have any idea just how much this little trick of yours messes up the tactical balance between the Great 5 villages? As soon as word gets out that you can do the Hiration, Iwa'll be sending assassins, Kumo'll be fortifying their borders and Mizu's new Mizukage will either demand your hand in marriage as the price of an eternal alliance or join Iwa in sending assassins. New Mizukage? Yeah, my dad mentioned her just before we hauled ass. Shikamaru yawned. Someone called Terumi Mei, word came in just before. What the hell? Everyone spun to stare at the questioner and Asuma paled. Mamakai Zabuza. Look, we can fight later. Zabuza stated. I need to get 2 things straight here. 1, the blonde can do the Hiration? I thought that only, wait, shit. You look just like him, except for those whiskers. You're his son, aren't you? Everyone stared at the Mist Nukanin and he shrugged. What? And kid, you sure about Mei-chan being the Mizukage? My dad said and. Shikamaru managed, his eyes fixated on the giant sword slung on Zabuza's back. Narashikaku, right? Yeah, he'd know for sure, if anyone did. Zabuza mused. Gato hired me to kill the bridge builder, but if what you say is true, kid. Demonstration. 3 of Naruto's clones surrounded Tajuna and they vanished in a golden flash. Shit. Zabuza said. Okay. Hopefully I won't see you around. Zabuza vanished in a brief cloud of mist and everyone stared at the empty space before Ino broke the silence. What the hell just happened? I have no bloody clue. Asuma finally admitted. Could he be trying to trick us, make us lower our guard? Kiba asked and Asuma shook his head. Nope. Zabuza's a master of silent killing. None of us even suspected he was here before he spoke up. If he'd actually wanted Tajuna dead, we'd probably be looking at the old drunk's severed head by now. Thanks for the image, sensei. Koji muttered, turning slightly green. Naruto, if you can go and fetch our client, we'll continue. Asuma said and Naruto grinned, summoning 2 clones and vanishing in a flash of light. He still doesn't get it, does he? Shikamaru grumbled. He overturns the entire playing field and doesn't realize it. What are you going on about? Ino asked as Naruto reappeared with Tajuna. That was weird. Tajuna stated, giving his ever-present Sakejug a suspicious look. For a moment, I thought I was back in Konoha. I think the drink's finally getting to me. The assembled shinobi watched in silence as Tajuna ambled across to the nearest tree and emptied the Sakejug into the earth around it. Yup, no more drink for me. He stated. Okay, YVE we stopped. There's a super bridge I need to build. Let's go. Am I the only sane one here? Ino mourned as she trudged along at the back of the group. Gato stared at the man before him in shock. The person who had just brought the unwelcome news to him was a former postman, trained in the use of chakra to cover long distances and fighting skills geared towards escape and evasion. However, The reason that the man now known only as Kaguya was a former postman was that he had chosen to betray the sanctity of the post, reading it and using the information for his own profit until the day when he was discovered. Geto had promptly hired him, not only as a messenger but also as one of his lieutenants. Anyone who knew the value of information was someone that he wanted for himself, and the man's known proclivities gave Geto several levers to control him with. "Are you certain?" Geto asked, and Kaguya nodded. "Zabuza has departed, taking his helper with him," he said. "I was able to get close enough to listen in, and apparently one of the genin is the son of a powerful Konoha ninja. Since the Hiraishin was mentioned, I believe that the genin in question is the son of the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato." Geto slowly grinned. "Head to Iwa. Tell them that in exchange for a team to destroy the bridge and kill the builder, the boy in question will be theirs." Kaguya returned Geto's wicked grin, then he vanished in a cloud of smoke. "Soon, Wave will be my permanent fiefdom, a tax-free land of slaves and servants where I rule all and where I can pursue whatever business dealings I wish." Geto gloated, rubbing his hands together. "With my own personal estate as my warehouse and harbor, giving me a secure base ready for infiltrating and subverting the land of water, my wealth and power will increase dramatically." Geto's laughter echoed around his office. "And here we are," Tajuna stated. "Home super home." The assembled shinobi looked at the house thoughtfully. "How many spare bedrooms do you have?" Asuma asked. "2. I know that usually it's by ranks, but should we do a male/female split instead?" Asuma asked, glancing at Kurenai, who nodded slowly. "I have a tent in my scrolls and can share with Naruto-kun if you need the room," Hinata offered, blushing furiously as Ino started to giggle. Kurenai shook her head. "Hinata." She sighed, then she laughed. "Okay, I'm actually impressed. Never expected that from the shy one of your team." Asuma agreed. "Sorry, Hinata, but you're with Ino and myself," Kurenai said, trying to sound stern despite the smile playing around the ends of her lips. "Tsunami!" Tajuna shouted. "We're back, with help." "Father!" A female voice responded from inside, and a moment later the front door opened. "Hello, Father, I thought you were only going to get a single team." "Ahahaha!" Tajuna laughed self-consciously. "You know, it's a super funny story." "Father! What happened?" Onaki stared at the photo in his hands, then his eyes rose to meet the fearless gaze of the ninja who had brought it to him. "So?" he growled. "Your employer wants to hire one of our best teams to kill a civilian and destroy a bridge, and in exchange, we get the son of the demmed Yondaime." Kaguya nodded. "Fine." Onaki grumbled. "Head back and tell this Geto that the teams will be on their way by tomorrow morning." Kaguya bowed and vanished in a swirl of smoke, leaving Onaki frowning at the far wall. "Gramps." Onaki turned his head to fix his granddaughter with a glare. "What is it?" Kurochuchi closed the side door behind her as she walked across the audience chamber to stop in front of Onaki, craning her neck slightly to look at the picture he was holding. "I was listening in. That's the son of the Yondaime." Onaki nodded. "Good." Kurochuchi stated. "Gramps, send me. I'll take down that brat and drag his bleeding carcass back here so our people can rip his techniques away from him." "Well, you have been training in Kaijigan no Jutsu, so you'll be able to get the team there." Onaki mused. "I wasn't looking forwards to making that journey myself." "That's because you're old, Gramps." Kurochuchi snorted. "Look, once we've grabbed the brat and blown the bridge, you may as well hand the head over. I'll grab a team and head out. I'll make sure that Dad gets avenged." "Wait." Onaki snapped as he grabbed a pen and paper, scribbling down some instructions. "Take this to SOAT command, they'll give you a team to lead." Kurochuchi accepted the note, bowed and turned to leave. Onaki watched her stride out and sighed. "Damn it, be careful. You're the only relative I have left." Chapter 15, Discussions of a New Genin. Inari sulked his way down the stairs to where the new guests were having breakfast. As he heard their laughter and flowing conversations, his anger at their carefree outlook welled up inside him. Taking a deep breath, Inari lunged forwards to slam open the door and make a dramatic entrance that would force everyone to look at him, but just as he reached the door, it was pulled open from the other side and Inari, deprived of the support of the handle, staggered forwards before landing on his stomach. "Oh. Hey, this yours?" Inari felt himself being grabbed by his shirt and lifted into the air. "Get off me!" As soon as his feet touched the ground, Inari spun round and glowered at the person who had picked him up. The whiskered teen simply grinned down at him. "He's trying to be emo. That's so cute. He's nowhere near what Sasuke can do, he hasn't even got the brooding look down yet, it just looks like depressed pouting. Although I'll give him points for not having hair that looks like a duck's ass." Inari froze as his plan to show them just how bad his life was shattered. "Huh. So, Naruto." Another voice said and Inari turned to see that the speaker was a bearded man. "You got the tag to put on the bridge?" "One for the bridge and already got one on the porch." Naruto nodded. "I can move the old man between the two without having to worry about an ambush. In fact, I may pop back to Konoha and pick up some more tags, put them in strategic places, you know. Not too many more." The man replied, leaving Inari totally confused. "I don't know how many tags are left, but we don't want them to become common knowledge. Despite Zabuza having seen you do that technique, that is." "What are you talking about?" Inari burst out. "Ninja stuff." A rough-looking boy with red markings on his cheeks grinned. "Stuff like heroes." Inari scoffed, trying to turn the situation into one where he could use the no such things as heroes speech he'd been saving up. "Heroes are those who stand up for what they truly believe in," the bearded man said. "Often, they die in the process, but their sacrifice can inspire others to take up the burden and continue on the path that they opened. Others die against impossible odds because no one stood with them, but even then, they leave a legacy which may one day inspire those who saw what they did. Being a hero is not something that one should aspire to, and being one is a heavy burden indeed, but becoming a hero is often the result of doing what is needed, of doing what is right." Inari stared at the man in shock. "Who are you?" "Ah, yes, we haven't introduced ourselves, have we?" The man smiled. "My name is Sarutobi Asuma, one of the last two survivors of the 12 Guardian Ninja of the Fire Daimyo before it was reformed. This beautiful lady is none other than Yui Kurenai, the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha." Inari let the introductions flow over him as he fought to understand Asuma's comments about heroes. "Okay, I think we should sort out rotas," Asuma said after everyone had finished breakfast. "Kurenai. Asuma and I discussed this last night and we both believe that Gato will not give up his attempts to destroy the bridge or kill Tajuna," Kurenai stated. "As such, we need to consider what steps he will take. The most likely option is a strike aimed at Tajuna, which is why 3 clones of Naruto will always be by his side. Should any threat appear, Tajuna can be removed to safety at once, thus freeing us from the need to protect him. Similarly, it is likely that Gato will seek to use Tsunami and Inari as hostages. Therefore, Naruto will provide another 6 clones to watch over them, but we will need extra guards to buy the handful of seconds needed. Therefore, teams will alternate between bridge duty and guarding Tsunami and Inari, with us swapping at lunchtime, when Tajuna returns to the house. You will all wear these under your clothes," Asuma stated, passing metal tags to all the genin except for Naruto and Hinata. "If you go down, as long as you are wearing these, Naruto can get you. You will return them after the mission is over." "Why isn't Hinata getting one?" Ino asked as she pulled out a piece of string and used the 2 holes at the top of the tag to thread the string through, making it into a necklace. "I already have one," Hinata said quietly, throwing a smile across to Naruto, who returned it. "Naruto-kun gave it to me." "Naruto-kun?" Ino pounced. You've been holding out on me, Hinata. We are so going to have some gossip tonight. How can I keep my position of gossip queen of Konoha if you try to hide things from me?" Hinata gave Naruto a pleading look and Shikamaru sighed. "Ino, please stop being so troublesome. Your inquisition can wait until we finish this mission and are heading back to Konoha." Hinata's look of imminent panic abated slightly as Ino nodded slowly. "Fine." She sighed. "So, Kurenai, Do you want your team to do the bridge or the house first? Oh. I want the house. Ino shouted. I've been reading up on traps and I really want to set some up this morning. I'll leave a couple more clones to help you, if you want. Naruto offered and Ino nodded, then grinned wickedly. Hinata, if you let him slip through your fingers, I'll gladly take him. Naruto oofed as Hinata seemed to teleport across the room and into his lap. Wow. Ino gaped. That is one heck of a protective instinct you have there. Hinata hid her blush against Naruto's shoulder. Whoa. Kiba breathed as the scale of the bridge became obvious. That is one hell of a big bridge. That it is. Kurenai agreed as she hefted the tri-blade kunai that Naruto had given her, then threw it at the point where the bridge met the island. The blade penetrated into the road and quivered for a few seconds, then Tajuna appeared in a golden flash, surrounded by 3 Narutos, 2 of whom promptly vanished in clouds of chakra smoke. Whoa, Naruto managed. That's a big bridge. You got that right. Kiba smirked. It's going to be the most super bridge ever once it's completed. Tajuna stated with pride. The thin disk of stone sliced through the air over a kilometer above the ground, scrolling past far below. Sat at the center was the one responsible for its ability to defy gravity, while around the technique user, 8 masked ninja sat, carefully spaced as to not unbalance the disk. Someone pass me up the end of the wire. Ino called. Here. Inari replied as he picked up the small stone that the wire in question was tied to and hurled it up so that Ino could grab it. A moment later, the now detached stone dropped down, then Ino landed on the ground. And done. She proclaimed, looking up at the kunai launcher nestled in the branches. If someone triggers that, they'll not only have to deal with a dozen blades slicing towards them, it'll also sound an alarm. Inari squinted at the device, then his eyes widened as he saw the 4 metal discs balanced against the back where the recoil from the launching kunai would dislodge them, causing them to fall to the ground. Those discs make very loud clangs when they land. Ino smirked. I introduced Yoshino to it and she helped me set some up in Shikamaru's bedroom to wake him up early. And it was troublesome. Shikamaru grumped from behind them. It took me almost a week to learn wall walking just so I could deactivate that damned device. We put it in the rafters of his room. Ino explained in a loud whisper and Shikamaru frowned as Inari giggled. I've got the warning stakes. Koji called as he lumbered up and Shikamaru took the first of the painted markers before hammering it into the ground so that only a handspan showed above the grass. Remember to stay on this side of the markers. Ino noted and Inari nodded, glancing round at the now heavily trapped trees, traps which Ino had decided that he should help set up so that he didn't have a chance to sulk. What about the path? Inari asked. Sensei's placed several alarm tags along it. Koji supplied as he handed Shikamaru another stake. He'll key Kurenai-san into them when she returns so that they'll both know if anyone's trying to get to the house. Wow. Inari breathed. Fish? Naruto called as he led a parade of clones up the pillars of the bridge, the clones holding several nets bulging with still flapping fish. Get your fish here. How? One of the workers asked. Geto has boats all over the place to sink anyone trying to fish so that only he can provide food. About that. Naruto grinned as he pointed down. Do you want some new boats? The workers dashed en masse to the railing and stared down at the 24 small boats being tethered to the bridge pillars, boats which had their original crews tied and gagged on the deck. Odd thing. Naruto grinned. Those guys weren't prepared for a dozen clones to appear on their ships using Shunshin and were easily subdued. I only lost 15 clones all told. You took out Geto's blockade. Tajuna gasped as he joined the workers. Well, the blockade on this side, yep. Naruto laughed. You know, if you have anyone who knows where Geto's ships are kept, I could probably sneak aboard and take them from him. We'll keep that in mind. But I'd insist that you have either myself or Asumaku-san along with you. Kurenai said as she leaned over the balcony to look at the captives below. So, what do we do with them? Naruto said with a shrug. I mean, we could always kill them, but that'd be such a Geto thing to do. Several of the workers closed their mouths, their suggestions left unspoken. We have an old quarry that hasn't been used in over a decade. Tajuna mused. It has steep sides and only one way out. I think it'll suffice as a prison if we build a wall around the top of the ramp. A rumble of agreement met his idea. I can help with that. Naruto grinned. Kakashi-senpai helped me to learn a technique to raise walls after I helped him test his team. Search and bring our new prisoners. Tajuna shouted. Kid, you're with me, I'll show you where the quarry is. You know, a voice from the crowd gloated, if this kid keeps grabbing Gato's men, he won't have any left to protect him when we decide to after him for what he's done. Keep grabbing his men, kid. Another voice cheered. Kid. Naruto mock huffed. The name's Uzumaki Naruto. Let's hear it for Naruto. The first voice shouted. Naruto. 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 As the chant grew, Naruto blushed slightly, then felt Hinata place her hand on his shoulder. I always knew that you were a hero. She whispered to him and Naruto smiled. Okay, folks. He shouted and the crowd quietened down. Some of you take the fish back to the village and make sure everyone gets some, the rest of you, let's put these creeps away. The cheering was so loud that Kurenai momentarily wondered if Gato had heard it from his mansion. The stone disc descended in the gathering dusk, coming to a gentle touchdown as Gato stepped out of the front door of his mansion. That was fast. He said as 8 of the figures unfolded themselves from their seated poses and straightened up while the 9th one sagged. Gato-san. One of the masked shinobi said. We request overnight quarters so that our leader can recover from the energy she expended to allow us to travel here. Gato looked at Kaguya. I believe that one of the barracks is still empty, sir. The former postman said, correctly predicting his command. I shall escort these honored shinobi there and see about providing sustenance for them as well so that they are in top form tomorrow. Gato smirked. Excellent. A quintet of flashes lit the porch briefly, and Tajuna blinked. Hey. He said, pointing to Hinata and the 3 Narutos surrounding her. How come the kids' clones came with her when the others just sent us? It's more complicated than that. Kurenai said as she knocked on the door. Naruto. Naruto dispelled his 2 remaining clones and grinned. My clones dispel on arrival, unless I'm part of the ring. He said. My teachers and I still don't know why, but I hear that they're using the same technique now as well. This is not very reassuring. Tajuna mumbled. It works. Naruto shrugged as the door was opened by Koji. Chapter 16, Peril of a New Genin. Gato looked up from his breakfast as one of the Iwa shinobi appeared in a cloud of smoke. Gato-san. The shinobi said in a voice that managed to give away nothing about the shinobi behind the mask. We are almost prepared to move out to neutralize the Konoha squad and destroy the bridge. Excellent. Gato almost purred. I shall gather my men and start towards the village at noon to reassert my control. Will you be finished by then? The masked shinobi nodded, then vanished in another cloud of quickly dissipating smoke. Soon, all of Wave will be mine to command and no one shall dare raise their hand against me. Gato gloated. Shinjun Oyobai and Satsuti Satsuta are ready to move out, Kurachuchi-san. The first masked man said and Kurachuchi nodded in satisfaction. Excellent. She said, pulling out a map. The house is here and the bridge here, so we'll head to this point. Squad 1 under Kakugan will then travel to the bridge and covertly place explosives to take it down. Once that is done, they shall move to reinforce Squad 3. Squad 2 under Sekugan will go to the house and kill everyone there while Group 3 under myself will engage and kill the bridge builder and any Konohanin at the bridge, except for our target, Uzumaki. He is to be kept alive. Note that I do not say anything about him retaining the use of his limbs. A sense of predatorial hunger briefly infused the atmosphere of the room. Today, we finally get our revenge against the yellow flash of Konoha. Kurachuchi growled as she rolled up the map and returned it to its storage scroll. SOAT, move out. 3 seconds later, the room was empty. 4 flashes of light marked the appearance of Team 8 at the bridge. For a moment, they all remained motionless, then Hinata placed a hand on the necklace that she wore and Tajuna appeared beside her, surrounded by 3 Narutos. "We're clear, Tajuna-san," Kurenai reported as a wave of bugs emerged from Shino's coat and flew outwards towards the woods. "Nothing dangerous in the range of Hinata's Byakugan, and my other 2 genin don't detect anything dangerous. Thanks." Tajuna sighed as he spotted the first few members of his workforce appearing. "Okay, time to keep building." "What the fuck?" Kurochuchi swore as she collapsed her telescope and clambered down from the top of the tree. As she landed, she looked at the 5 SOAT members waiting for her. The Uzumaki just transported himself, the civilian in a genin team via Hiration. She snarled. "I guess that proves beyond all doubt that he's the Yellow Flash's son, no one else would know that technique. We need to change plans." Several of the SOAT operatives shifted slightly. "We need to disable him as quickly as possible so that he can't escape," Kurochuchi explained. "There's a great deal of undergrowth to the right, so we'll use it in chakra suppression to get as close as possible before we attack. Genbugen, you use your Iwa Bunshins to engage the genin while you and Chosuke engage the Jonin sensei. The rest of you will help me charge the Uzumaki and take him down hard. If you can kill the civilian during the attack, do so." The shinobi nodded. "Then let's move out." Hinata activated her Byakugan for another quick scan of the surrounding area and froze. "Hinata?" Kurenai asked, catching the girl's reaction. "Shinobi, 5, no, 6 of them, coming in from the east through the undergrowth." Hinata whispered and Kurenai cursed under her breath. "How strong are they?" "I think Jonin." Hinata managed and Kurenai inhaled sharply. "Shit. Go to Naruto, tell him to get the old man the hell out of here and see if he can get us some reinforcements," she snapped. Hinata nodded and scampered off to where Naruto and several clones were standing near Tajuna. "Okay, we're almost in position," Kurochuchi whispered, then a sudden flash of yellow light illuminated the edge of the bridge. "Fuck!" she shouted. "Attack! Kill the fucking Leafnin!" Kurochuchi and her team almost exploded out of the undergrowth and leapt onto the bridge, kunai already leaving their hands as the civilian workers dived for cover. "That one's a Hyuga. An unsealed one," Genbugen shouted and Kurochuchi glanced at where he was pointed. "Seize her," she commanded. "At the very least, Iwa will gain one of the great dojutsu." "Wa!" Inari yelped as 3 of Naruto's clones grabbed him and vanished an instant later. Another flash from inside the house marked Tsunami's forcible relocation as well. "Troublesome." Shikamaru sighed as he rose from where he was playing shogi against Asuma. "Naruto must have detected an enemy." "Agreed," Asuma said as he pulled out his trench knives. "Everyone, be alert." Twang. Ino smirked as a screaming figure briefly appeared above the treetops before arcing back down to the unforgiving ground. "At least we know where one of them is," Asuma said after a long moment. "Tuing. Seize her." The leader of the rapidly approaching attackers commanded and Hinata gasped as long-repressed memories of being helpless in the arms of the kidnapper from Kumo surfaced. "At the very least, Iwa will gain one of the great dojutsu." Hinata stepped back, raising her arms in a defensive posture, but the attackers were Jonin and deep in her heart, she knew that she didn't stand a chance. Dynamic entry. 2 of the attackers were blasted sideways by a pair of somehow familiar green blurs which were followed by a rain of kunai, then a familiar figure stepped up to Hinata's side. "Neji-san." "Hinata-sama." Neji replied calmly. "Naruto-san came to us, offering an impromptu exercise and Gai-sensei decided it would be good training." "Yosh." Hinata blinked, then turned to look at where the duo of green blurs were engaging all 6 attackers in battle, the sounds of punches and kicks coming so rapidly that they sounded almost like a constant impact. "Yay! 8 trigrams, 64 palms." Hinata and Neji shouted in unison as their hands blurred. The unmasked Kunoichi trying to attack them shuddered as the strikes closed down her chakra system. "Yosh!" Lee shouted as his spinning kick shattered one of the ninja, reducing it to a pile of stone. "Gai-sensei! Our adversaries seem to be using some sort of unyouthful rock-based clone." "That is the Iwa Bunshin, my student." Guy shouted back as he grabbed one of the remaining shinobi and used him like a club, slamming a second one into the air. Strike them hard enough and they shatter like the log I had you practice the lotus on. The last shinobi fell over, having been punched by both green-clad ninja at the same time, and the two leaf nin looked at each other. That was an excellent workout, Guy-sensei. Indeed it was, Lee-kun. Guy-sensei. Lee-kun. Hinata found herself being pulled so she was facing away from the pair, then the world seemed to light up behind them. Arg. My eyes. Kiba screamed. This is disconcerting. Shino stated. Hinata gave Neji a quizzical look. Sunset Genjutsu. A battered, scorched and generally disheveled figure staggered out of the tree line and collapsed. Ino, can you bring him over here? Asuma asked and Ino nodded before flashing through a sequence of hand seals. Shinten Shin no Jutsu. Koji caught Ino as she collapsed, then the prone shinobi slowly pulled himself to his feet and staggered forwards. Damn, this guy was got good. He said as he shed his mask and cloak. I'm better at traps than I thought. Hold still. Asuma commanded as his hands flickered over the shinobi's body, removing weapon pouches and concealed weapons before pulling out a scroll which he unrolled. A puff of chakra later, he held a set of restraints in his hands, which he placed on the shinobi. Okay, you can go back now. He said and the Iwa shinobi collapsed. A moment later, Ino opened her eyes and let Koji set her back on her feet. Iwa nin normally deploy in trios. Asuma said thoughtfully, looking at the line of booby-trapped trees. There's probably 2 more of them still out there. Stay on guard, just in case. Hi, sensei. His genin responded. I think we're safe now. Kurenai said as she watched Lee and Guy finish tying up the Iwa shinobi while still declaiming their attachment to how youthful things were. Hinata, can you bring Naruto back now? Hinata touched her necklace and an instant later, 3 Narutos flashed into existence beside her. Inari and Tsunami are safe as well. Naruto reported. So, who were these guys? Iwa shinobi. A new voice called and everyone turned to see Asuma approaching. He drew up to them and pulled out 3 prisoner scrolls. So, we got 9 of them. Wow. If you seal these ones up, Naruto can take them back to Konoha so that we can get our portions of the bounties on them. 9 enemy shinobi. Kiba smirked. That's a lot of dash. Which will be divided into 22 portions with Kurenai-sensei, Asuma-san, and Guy-san receiving 4 portions each. Shino calculated. Assuming that each of the 9 was worth 10,000 ryo each genin's portion of the total would be approximately 409 ryo while each jonin would receive 16,363 ryo. Damn it. Kiba cursed. We got more from our share of the Demon Brothers. Actually, I think that you'll be getting a bit more than that. Asuma said slowly as he leafed through a bingo book that he had pulled out of his pocket. That's Kurachochi, the granddaughter of the Chuchikage. I think we'll get a reclamation bounty of at least 500,000 ryo for her from Iwa even if Iwa is the only one paying out. Kiba's pout turned into a wide grin and he turned to look at Shino. 26,300 for each genin and 105,000 for each jonin. I'll get a new den with that and what I already have. Kiba exulted. Yeah, hear that, Akamaru? We're gonna get our own den. Actually, you aren't. A new voice said and everyone turned to see Gato advancing towards them from the end of the bridge, a large crowd of mercenaries behind him. Now, if you turn over the Iwanin to me, as well as Tajuna, then I might let you live. Otherwise, you're going to die and I'll claim the rewards on you. Well, my head is worth 35 million. Asuma mused with a smirk. But there's no way I'm going to let you claim it. And we're not letting you kill the old man. Kiba snarled. Oh, really? Gato sneered as the first 2 ranks of mercenaries behind him lifted crossbows into firing positions. Futon, de Toppa. Naruto shouted and a massive wind blast slammed into the mercenaries, toppling the first few ranks like skittles while Gato was sent somersaulting into the air. Several of the crossbows triggered and the quarrels rose high into the air before succumbing to gravity and dropping back down, hitting several of the would-be attackers. Kill them. Gato squealed as he grabbed the bolt sticking out of his shoulder. They hurt me. I want them dead. I want the men torn to shreds and fed to the pigs. I want the women raped to death. Kill them AGLRK. Gato froze, then he fell backwards, the arrow that had smashed into his forehead sticking out like a truncated flagpole. Good shot, Inari. Naruto's voice came from behind the assembled ninja and everyone turned to see another Naruto standing beside a crossbow-armed Inari, both at the head of a large mob of villagers. What? The clone shrugged. Boss brought them all into town at Inari's request. He pointed out that you might need reinforcements. Yosh, that is a most youthful decision. Guy proclaimed as he flexed his fingers, causing his knuckles to crack. Now, what shall we do about these most unyouthful brigands who still remain? The sentence was enough to break the spell of paralysis that had settled over the mercenaries and almost as one, they turned and fled, running down the bridge in an attempt to reach the ships that they had used to arrive on. Oh, we're good. Kiba gloated. That's it for part 2. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.